You know, there's a part of me that wishes I'd started doing this on Monday, so that would be up to the red cards today, and then I can make a joke about Wizards being in the hot seat. But I'm going to ignore the temptation and just go to my happy place. All the blue cards. Counter spells. Draw spells. Planeswalkers. Artificers. What's going on, everybody? It's Alex once again with another installment of the EOT Newsflash Core Set 2019. Now with 100% more blue cards because, well, we're doing the blue cards, obviously, here today. I kind of feel like I should have worn matching colored shirts for this thing, and it's kind of too late for that now. So, hey, this is what you get. So, anyway, if you've already watched this review so far, you've seen the white cards, and you know that I'm doing something just a little bit different. I'm not actually grading these cards this time, because as I've mentioned last time, the sort of the delta, the difference between what makes an unplayable card and a playable card in Limited is starting to close. There aren't just so many just outright terrible cards in sets anymore that you wouldn't ever consider playing, and they're some kind of duress perhaps, but typically most cards are playable in one form or fashion. So I'm really just going to give my thoughts on these cards in general, what kind of deck I'd like to play them in, how early I would take them in a draft in some cases, you know, how many I'm going to want to be playing, and things like that. So just kind of giving my more abstract thoughts about them instead of labeling them with some sort of arbitrary alphanumeric system here. So let's not waste any time here. Let's get right started here with Aether Tunnel, a 1 and a blue enchantment aura at uncommon that enchants a creature and gives it +1/+0, and it can no longer be blocked. Now, of course, I've always said don't play enchantment-based pump spells because they'll have the bounce spell, the removal spell. Well, of course, they're going to have it at some point. But until they do, this is going to go on, you know, if you could put this on like a 2 or a 3 power body all of a sudden, this is a very quick clock and your opponent has to respect this. And if you're playing blue, you probably have some kind of tricky removal, things like disperse, you know, other bounce spells that are going to make your opponent have a harder time actually fight against this. And that's why I like this thing as a really good tempo play here, you know. I don't want a bunch of them in my deck. I need at least a couple good creatures that can take advantage of it. Maybe an evasive flyer, maybe just a hard-hitting guy on the ground. Maybe I'm in blue-red, or maybe I'm in blue-white and I have an aggressive knight on the ground that can take full advantage of this. Not even close to being a first pick, maybe mid-pack when I know I've got a couple of good bodies to put on this, and I might play upwards of 1, maybe 2, if I want to be at a more aggressive sealed deck for Limited here. So, pretty solid card here. I wish it did something more than just giving +1/+0, but what can you ask for? At that point, we're pushing into like rare territory, I think. Next up is just plain old bread and butter magic cards, guys. This is Anticipate. And I'm blanking all of a sudden on when this first Khans of Tarkir, I think this was first printed, and this card has been a staple in blue decks as long as it's been in Standard. Every time that this card is printed, we see it show up in blue control decks. You know, right now we have things like Glimmer of Genius, which are, you know, good because you have energy, but at the same time it costs 4 mana, and you know, there's just, you know, there's a metric there that we're, you know, this is obviously not the same card, and neither is it the other way around. Anticipate, though, is a perfectly good magic card, you know. It helps you filter through your deck. If you're looking for a land, you're going to find it in that top 3. I'll probably just tell you what it does. 1 in a blue, instant, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's a good filtering spell and does a really good job of, you know, just helping you find whether it's your threat or your land or whatever it's going to be to get you through to the end of the game. I'm not taking these very highly because, you know, in draft and sealed, you want to play spells that affect the board, but maybe as a one of, you know, if I'm playing a more controlling type deck that wants to find removal and counter spells, I'm okay playing maybe 1 or 2 of these in most decks. I probably wouldn't go for it in sealed just because I have a higher density of cards I probably want to play, and while in limit and drafts, I'm being a little bit more selective, and if this can help me be more selective with my picks after they're in my deck, all the better. So I like cards like this, good bread and butter, never go wrong with Anticipate. Next up, we have Aven Windmage, 2 and a blue, 2/2 bird wizard. at common, has flying that gets +1/+1 whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. So it's not quite prowess because it doesn't account for all non-creature spells. But yeah, this card's actually very powerful as well. 3 mana 2/2 flyers are always good limited, and that's Wind Drake stats right there if I'm not mistaken. And if you've got like a bounce spell or a pump spell to, maybe, turn combat in your favor, this thing's gonna get only bigger, and you're gonna take over the game very fast with this. So if you're in a more like blue-white skies flyer kind of deck, in draft especially, or even sealed for that matter, I'm gonna be happy to be playing this upwards. I take as many of these as I possibly can get. I like evasive creatures and limited, and this one's very, very good, and it's kind of in that sort of spot that I like to be in when it comes to playing limited games. So I like Aven Windmage quite a bit here. I'm happy to take it. Usually in the mid pack here. I'm not gonna be super excited to take it early, but it will always make my blue sealed decks, and more than likely I'll be in some kind of draft deck. Because if I'm playing blue, Aven Windmage is gonna make my deck as well. Moving right along to Aviation Pioneer, 2 and a blue, Human Artificer at common, 1/2. As she enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I'm just going to say Thopter token from here on out, guys, because I presume that you know that Thopters fly. Like, that's just a given, right? We can all agree on that? Okay. Yeah, this is another really fantastic card. If you're in a more kind of slowish control deck in limited, or if you're in sort of the blue-white artifact deck, which is very much blue-white sort of theme here, aside from flyers, even though the Thopters also do fly. 2 bodies for 3 mana, nothing to scoff at. They're good blockers. You can get aggressive with them. So I like cards like this quite a bit. Obviously I want to take this a little bit more highly if I'm in an artifact-based deck. But I'll never turn down 2-for-1s, especially in my favor, especially when I have a couple cards that are looking for artifacts to make them more powerful. So Pioneer here, pretty solid playable, nothing super exciting, but again, this is just bread and butter commons that you will be playing in your limited games of Magic here at the core set 19. And let's move right along. We've got our first couple of counter spells. The first one is Bone to Ash, returning from Dark Ascension, I believe. 2 blue, uncommon instant, counters a target creature spell and draws you a card. Here's the thing about counter spells limited, boys and girls. They're not very good, unless they're Cryptic Command, and that's not going to happen anytime soon in standard limited ever again, for that matter. And this one's really kind of showing that off, because in terms like 4 and beyond, when this actually becomes live, you're not going to want to hold up mana for this, because your opponent's probably already played some creatures, you've played some creatures, you want to be progressing the board. I mean, if I'm in a more controlling type deck that's, a blue-based control deck, I might take 1 or 2 of these just because the card draw is, obviously powerful, but my opponent has to be able to play into it. And if they're sniffing it out, they're going to play non-creature spells, and all of a sudden I look kind of foolish for holding up 4 mana when I could have played another threat or a removal spell or something like that. So be careful when you pick cards like this, or pick them for draft, or put them into your sealed decks, just because there is definitely a skill testing moment where your opponent's going to go, I see what you're doing there. Here's an artifact, and you're just going to go, oh, okay. But then you have to anticipate on their end step, and it's okay because you look like a genius. But anyway, moving on, solid card, but not super exciting though. Much like our next card, here's Cancel, 1 blue, counter target spell. This is a little bit more up my alley despite being a common in limited, just because it catches everything. It's going to be live no matter what point of the game you're in. No matter what happens, you can stop something. A lethal combat trick, a planeswalker, or a massive enchantment. There's things that make cards like this obviously better in the more grand scheme of things. Now that being said, I will kind of. I am curious to see, we talked about the speed of the format in our White review, and White has a lot of very small aggressive creatures. But here we have some slower blue counter spells, and we're going to get to some more tempo-esque plays too for blue. So that gives me kind of pause to think that we might be in more of like a mid-rangey, slowish kind of format where cards like this might actually be better than I'm giving them credit for. Of course, without playing the format, I really can't give a definitive judgment on cards like this, just what I've played with them before, and typically cards like this would not have made my draft deck or sealed decks in most cases. So take it with a grain of salt, definitely try them out, and the format might be a little bit more nice for cards like this to be played in. But let's move right along to Departed Deckhand. 1 in a blue, 2/2. She looks kind of like one of the pirate. I mean, obviously she's a pirate. Obviously she's a pirate, Alex. Well, like one of the Pirates of the Caribbean pirates. I'm blanking on her name. Tia Dorma, I think is who it was. The voodoo lady, whatever. Uncommon 2/2 spirit pirate. When he becomes the target of a spell. Only a spell. That's actually really important because it used to be these phantasmal creatures would sacrifice themselves on abilities as well. So that's a cool little changing in the templating there. Can't be blocked except by spirits, and paying 3 in a blue, another target creature you control can't be blocked this turn except by spirits. I'm not going to have like a spirit counter going up, although I could. Hold on. Spirit counter engage. So we're gonna holy cow. Oops. My bad. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Pirates. So, yeah. Spirit count. Spirit count. Ding! All right. So, this might become relevant later. Who knows? Yeah, this is pretty sick, actually. I don't know how many spirits are in this set, obviously. We'll find out as we go along this together. There might be some in black, maybe? I'm not sure. Maybe it's like some spectral type stuff there. Some kind of like the... oh, shoot. Those Neku something. And Tuco, those guys. I think those are spirits, I think. But yeah, this is a pretty cool card here. And, going late game, this is a great mana sink when you've got like maybe the board stalled out a little bit. Start beating face. The card is powerful. And, if I want to be in a more aggressive blue deck, I'm going to take this pretty highly. This will most likely always make my sealed decks. Obviously the target of a spell is kind of, not great that it sacrifices itself, but that's, this card is relatively low on the investment cost and just high on the return that, there's not a whole lot of, bad feeling when your opponent goes, okay, I'm going to kill this thing now. It's not the worst thing in the world, but just don't pump it yourself. Don't try to go like, I got you. I'm going to pick it 2+2. No, don't do that. Next up, we've got Disperse here. 1 in a blue. This is just bread and butter magic right here, guys, boys and girls. Common instant returns a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. I love unsummon effects, and this is probably like the biggest strike against playing enchantment-based pump spells in limited, because they're just going to go disperse, gotcha, and you're down a card at that point. But cards like this are always fantastic. 1 or 2 are always going to make my blue draft decks. I'm going to play just as many in my seal decks and just use these to tempo my opponents out and just make tempo being, such a hard thing to grasp for new players. You're going to play a creature, okay, cool, disperse that. Now, wow, wrapping their heads around the fact that that's time walk efficiently, a very efficient time walk in some cases, or they've spent their whole turn playing one creature and you just go, nope, not so fast. So cards like this are very, very powerful and are definitely welcome in core sets. I'm kind of glad it's not unsummoned because that card gets stupidly irritating, especially if there is some sort of like a blue aggressive tempo deck in standard. We've seen Vapor Snag and what that does to a format, so let's maybe not repeat that, but maybe not the worst thing in the world. Who knows? Yeah, Disperse, fantastic card here. Moving right along to, more fantastic cards. Divination, 2 in a blue sorcery. Draws you 2 cards. This card is fantastic. This is good Theros art too. I like this art personally. This is just bread and butter magic right here. I'm typically not going to go crazy over picking these when I'm playing drafts. Well, I will play them in sealed though, because card advantage is king in sealed. In draft, it's a little bit lower pick for me because I'm going to be prioritizing things like Disperse, like other removal spells, better creatures. But at the same time, one of these might, is definitely playable, especially if the format's kind of slow, can let you sort of sculpt your hand into a sort of a winning game plan and really go from there. So this card's really, really good. I like it. I like having it around in Limited. It's not going to be the best card in your deck, but you're not going to feel bad. Oh, shoot, I drew Divination this turn. Solid playable here. That being said, our next card, this thing is a house. This is the Djinn, or just Djinn of Wishes. 3 blue for a creature Djinn, not a spirit, doesn't go on the counter. 4/4 flying, enters the battlefield with 3, because you only get 3 from a genie if you've seen Aladdin. 3 wish counters on it. 2 blue removes a wish counter from Djinn of Wishes. Reveal the top card of your library. You may play that card without paying its mana cost. If you don't, exile it. So I don't know if there's any scry in this format. That makes this card a little bit better. The fact that it says play and not cast is huge, because if it's a land on top and it said cast, well, that card's automatically gone. But if you're just able to, like, if you're especially, so like, this is how I kind of look at this card. It's weird because you obviously want to have aggressive plays in your deck with it. So you can't, like, flip over, like a counter spell with this, which, I mean, I guess you could, like, in response to their casting their spell, which would be kind of sick there. But yeah, this card is very, very powerful, and definitely just 3 free cards off of it is nothing to sneeze at here. So I'll take the Djinn here pretty highly. I'll put it in most every blue deck. I will activate the ability with Reckless Abandon, most likely. I'm typically more inclined, if I know my deck, I need to know my deck, first of all. I've built it, but I really need to know the ins and outs of my deck. To know that I have live hits off of this thing. I don't want to be flipping counter spells when there's nothing going on the board. That's just, I don't want to have to deal with that. So there's some strategy elements here, and this is a really good card for new players to learn on, and that's why I like seeing Djinn of Wishes here, because it is a good teaching card that you just can't always, flip the top card of my library. Oh man, I really can't do anything. There's that learning moment where I think players will go, oh, I can't do it right now, but maybe I can do it in response to their spell and be kind of crafty with it. So cool stuff like that happens with cards like this, and they're very easy to understand, and they're very on theme as well. So Djinn of Wishes, very, very powerful card, and a great teaching tool, and a good, powerful rare for a relatively low power environment like a core set. Next up, we have Dwindle. 2 and a blue enchantment aura. Enchants a creature and gives it -6, -0. And when that creature blocks, you destroy it. Wow. I'm not sure, like, is this it's obviously a cave that this cat is going in. Yeah, this is kind of strange. I'm not quite sure the flavor behind this card. This is as close to blue removal as you're going to get in Limited. We're not getting things like Pongify or Rapid Hybridization anymore, I don't think. So cards like this are definitely bread and butter for blue, especially if they have something that's just massive on the board. Not many things are going to have a lot of power to throw around at -6. So I'll be happy to pick some of these up in my draft decks. I'll be happy to play at my limited decks for blue. Again, not a lot of these cards are going to be so bad that I'm just going to go no. But there's definitely a time and place for all of them. And I think Dwindle's got a pretty good one, especially if your opponent's playing green, where a lot of the bigger creatures are going to be found in this set. So Dwindle, pretty solid playable here. All right, Essence Scatter. Now, forget what I've said about counter spells for a second, because Essence Scatter is its own unique little kind of beast, in my opinion. Apparently, we just can't reprint Mana Leak anymore, because that makes me sad, and Remand is out of the question at this point. 1 in a blue instant, common, counter target creature spell. Now, things like Bone to Ash and Cancel are all fine and good, but when you're playing Limited, and, if you look at the typical build of a Limited deck, 40 cards, 23 spells, 17 lands, typically 5, 6, 7 non-creature spells at best, and the rest is just all creatures. Like, almost half of the deck is creatures. And this is where cards like this become very, very powerful. I will take Essence Scatters very, very aggressively most times because 2 mana is very easy to hold up in limited, especially if I'm playing like a more blue control type deck. I'm happy to play my second land and just pass and catch whatever they do. You know, more than likely, I would say you're probably 70% or better, you know, depending on what your opponent is also playing, to just snap off Essence Scatter and just keep them off of the board for a long enough time before you can start stabilizing the board, even though it might not even be going anywhere on turn 2. It just gives you that much more breathing room when your opponent has to really kind of evaluate, well, do I play my weaker creatures first into this and not get in the chip damage? Or maybe wait until he's got up some. I play my bigger creature and get blown out completely. There's a good push-pull here, and Essence Scatter is another great teaching tool for new players to kind of wrap their heads around the strategy of when to play creatures and things like that. So, love Essence Scatter, awesome. Come on, Mana Leak. That's all I'm asking for, Mana Leak, come on. Next up, we've got, oh, look at this, it's Mana War, but it's a wizard and not a fish? Whatever. Exclusion Mage, 2 and a blue, uncommon, 2/2 human wizard. At it enters the battlefield, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Yes! This is a blue card I can get behind, even though I can get behind most of them already. This is a very, very powerful blue card right here. It's a shame there isn't any blink effects, you know, that can just, blink a permanent and bring it back into play, because this card would get nuts with this, or with that card. There might be. If we find it, awesome. So yeah, this card is really, really powerful. I will first pick this. If the rare is bad and this is in here, slam it, because there's nothing better than your opponent playing something on their turn and you just untap and go Exclusion Mage. Put it back in your hand, please. Again, tempo is king in limited, and a lot like Disperse, this is just infinitely better because there's a body attached to it. This will go in every draft deck I play in blue, every sealed deck I play that's blue. Exclusion Mage is premium blue uncommon power in a limited event environment like this. Next up, we've got the Frilled Sea Serpent. That is some bodacious art right here. I mean, the art in this set's just fantastic enough. This is awesome. 4 blue, common, 4/6 Serpent. You may pay 5 blue, and it can't be blocked this turn. So this is a good, common level finisher. You know, we had the Elephant Knight in white, and this is sort of like the same level of card here. And the stats are comparable at 4/6 versus a 3/7. Yeah, slam this, and just on your next turn, just like, I'm gonna start hitting you. This is a good one for that Aether Tunnel. Yeah, Aether Tunnel would like this. I'm not really super high on this card. If my blue decks in draft are looking for a finisher, and I'm mostly tempo spells and cheaper creatures and removal spells, this might be where I go, but I'd hope I can do better than this in draft. And, this is a little bit more at home in sealed, where the games are going to go longer from the sort of the look of the blue cards so far and the white cards. Things are kind of medium speed, as we've already said. This is definitely a card better suited for sealed and just being able to get in for a lot of damage over time, or just kind of like keep the board under control as you sort of try to get your way out of an aggressive start from your opponent. Yeah, this is decent stuff here. It's not exciting. It's really not exciting at all. I don't like this card a whole lot at all. So, this one might not make the cut ever. So, there you go. Next up, we have Gearsmith Prodigy. A single blue mana gets you a common human artificer. It's a 1/2 that gets +1/+0 as long as you control an artifact. So this is pretty sweet. So you play this into Pioneer or Gearshift Pioneer, whichever one the lady up top that makes a Bopper token. This into her is good game right there, because all of a sudden, 1 mana 2/2s I'm starting to scoff at. Like Goblin Guide, I mean, obviously, yes, comparisons can't be made there. This is still a really powerful card, and at 2 mana or a 2 toughness on a 1 mana body will hold down the fort for at least a turn, and then you start getting a little aggressive once he's a little bit bigger, and he's got a big old artifact behind him or something like that. Whatever this thing is standing behind him has to be at least 12 feet tall. So, pretty cool card right here. Obviously goes in a more draft-centric deck around artifacts. Less exciting in Seal unless you have a surplus of artifact matter cards like the Prodigy here. So definitely a more draft-centric card, but definitely in the right deck can be really powerful as well. Next up, we have Ghost Form. 1 in a blue sorcery at common gives up to 2 target creatures the ability, or the inability, I should say, to be blocked this turn. This is best in more like blue-white aggressive decks, that have the knights, that have the more aggressively costed like Gearsmith and Exclusion Mage. Those cards that want to get that are big enough to really kind of just get those last few points of damage in. Otherwise, it's not super exciting. I'll take maybe 1 for my draft decks, and I'm less excited to play this in sealed unless I'm more aggressive. But again, it's something that you can't really shape, just kind of the luck of the packs at that point. So this one, I've never been really high on Ghost Form. We see this card a whole lot, and, Unblockable is good, but just one time, it better kill them. Otherwise, I'm not playing it. So that's my advice on Ghost Form here. It better kill him, or don't play it. Simple stuff. Next up, we've got another card returning all the way from Theros. This is the Arisin Scholar, 5 in a blue creature Sphinx, flying 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. First pickable uncommon blue cards. This is what I'm talking about right here, guys. This is probably one of the better, maybe even the best uncommons for blue in the whole set, up there with the Exclusion Mage. Obviously, this one's a 6 and one's a 3. Scry 2 is huge and limited. So this is the Scry that goes with the Djinn of Wishes. Okay, so here's our combo, guys. But we're putting the pieces together. We see how this works. Still haven't found those spirits yet, though. Anyway, this is a perfectly good card here. First pickable, absolutely. Huge body. This is more in line what I think of when I imagine a blue finisher for limited. A big old Sphinx that has some value attached to it, that can deal a lot of damage very quickly once I've got the board under control. Most of my blue draft decks will play this unless I'm super aggressive blue-white, but I might enjoy pushing the curve a little bit higher just to have some top end and, be able to go late game, and also will always make my sealed decks for blue as well. Arisin Scholar is fantastic. And if you don't have a Scry, look, Scry X, look at the top X cards. You may put those in any order on the top or the bottom of your library. And there you go. Next up is Metamorphic Alteration. 1 in a blue enchantment aura at rare. Enchants a creature. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature. Wait, okay. And then, okay, we're templating here. So, enchants a creature. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature. Okay, hold on. Okay. It enchants a Oh! Okay. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, this one's weird. Okay, you enchant a creature. Your own creature. I was thinking that you enchant one of their creatures. No. Okay, so you enchant one of your own creatures, and then you choose a creature. And that enchanted creature is now a copy of chosen creature. Why was that so hard? It's literally... Sorry, I'm sorry. This one's really cool. It's a very low investment cost again. So let's say that you've got, something underwhelming like a Thopter token or a Knight token, and you slam Arisin Scholar and you find, oh look, there's Metamorphic Alteration. I'd like another Sphinx next turn. Stuff like that is good, and so the investment cost is so absurdly low on a card like this. So I'm pretty well inclined to just play this in whatever deck I'm playing that's blue, draft or sealed, and just copy the best thing on the board and just call it good. There's always going to be a better creature on the board, even if it's yours. So yeah, I like this card a lot. This is really cool, and the art on this is just bizarre. Like, the dude is turning into a dragon, and I don't know what's going on here, but this card is awesome. Deceptively difficult to understand at first, but awesome. So, any blue deck, I think, will want this card 100%. Maybe not first pick. I imagine this will wheel in draft, but once you've got some good blue cards to start copying, or just you're in blue in general, your opponent's gonna have something to copy at some point. So, pretty cool stuff. Next up, it does require a creature though, so it's not as great in like a control deck. So have some creatures there. But moving on to Mirror Image, 2 in a blue. uncommon 0/0 shapeshifter. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature you control. So the same thing applies as I said about metamorphic alteration. I have a Sphinx. I want another Sphinx. Problem solved. As long as I've got some decent creatures in my deck, if I have one good finisher and I want another one of it, really solid. The only problem is it's like a terrible top deck, as is metamorphic alteration, so that hits these things kind of in the worst way possible. Yeah, there's nothing worse than your opponent, you playing this and they bounce your other creature, and well, all of a sudden you're in bad shape. So, yeah, this requires definitely obviously cards to be in your deck that are good with it. So it's good, but it's not great. It's by no means a first pick. I might even be hard pressed to play this in sealed. I'm gonna reserve judgment on this one, I think. So TBD on this guy right here, the mirror image, TBD. Although it's very kaiju looking, and I like that. Next up, we've got a modern potential all-star. This is Mistcaller. A single blue mana gets you a Merfolk Wizard. It's a 1/1 and it's rare. Sacrifice Mistcaller until end of turn. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So this is obviously not going to do a damn thing in limited by any metric. There's nothing this card is going to do. Like, this just doesn't do anything. It's just bad. So by that metric, it's don't play this. But in modern, this stops things like Goryo's Vengeance, Collected Company, Court of Calling, Aether Vial, Burial Rites. You see where I'm going with this. This card is very, very powerful. It's just not in limited. And this is what core sets are for. Putting random cards that are just like, what the hell is this for? Oh, it's because of old formats. So there you go. Don't play Mistcaller. Put it in your binders, and then all those Merfolk guys will be like, ooh, I need this for my Merfolk deck. Merfolk players. Am I right? Moving right along, we have the Mystic Archaeologist. 1 in a blue, 2/1 human wizard, rare, 3 blue activated ability, draws you 2 cards. Hot damn! This card is awesome. Yeah, I can see this playing a role in standard at some point in the blue control mirrors, when it's just like, slam this guy on turn 2 and say go. And I start beating in. And you boarded out all your removal spells, I'll start beating him with my little wizard guy here and start drawing cards. Awesome. He's a little bit weaker in limited. I will probably play him in most blue decks that I'm playing. And then just late game, I'll just let him sit back and just start drawing cards. Drawing cards. Drawing cards. That's my drawing card motion for tonight. Drawing cards. Also, still no spirits we've seen so far. Spirit count 1 is really embarrassing, guys. Yeah, Mystic Archaeologist, very, very powerful card here. Like it. First pick it, probably. And then play it in every sealed blue deck I'm playing here. Next up, we have Omen Speaker. Another fantastic inclusion back from Theros. 1 in a blue, 1/3 human wizard at common. As she enters the battlefield, you scry 2. 1/3 bodies will hold down a lot of damage for a very long time, except for the most aggressive decks in limited. And there's going to be a point where you start turning her sideways, and it's going to feel kind of strange. But, Augur Bolus beat down back in the day, and so does Omen Speaker just fine. This girl's awesome. I will mid-picks here, definitely play her in sealed. And then mid-packs for, later in the packs, especially, late packs 2 and 3 when you're kind of more solidified into your color, obviously blue, and you want to get to your bombs in your deck, obviously. So, Omen Speaker, very, very powerful card. I need to make a quick note here. Nexus of Fate, obviously, is the buy a box promo. It is nowhere to be found in this limited set review because you cannot open it in a booster pack. So, if you're freaking out going, hey, he skipped Nexus of Fates, that's why. Moving on to Omniscience. I'm omniscience. I can read. 7 blue mythic rare enchantment. Dear God, what does this card do for that much mana, you might be asking? You may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. Wow. Yeah, don't play this. Don't do this. Don't play this unlimited. There's no way in hell you can justify playing this in your draft deck, in your sealed deck. Don't. Once you get to 10 mana, the game has probably gotten to the point where nobody has cards in their hand. This is underwhelming at best. The only reason this exists because all those legacy show and tell players needed this to be reprinted because it was like getting up to be like $40. So here's what you do with this: you cast show and tell, then you put Omniscience into play, and then you cast Emrakul the Aeon's Torn or Enter the Infinite and draw your entire deck. Yeah, there's combos here, but you're not paying 10 mana for this. I guarantee that. So don't touch this one. Leave it in the box. If it's foil, sell it to the shop or whatever. Don't play this one. Next up, we have One with the Machine, which is probably going to be a metal band at some point, or is going to inspire some metal band album artwork. I love this card. One with the Machine is a 3 and a blue sorcery at rare. It draws you cards equal to the highest converted mana cost amongst artifacts you control. When we get to the artifacts, we might come back to this one and say, hey, this is actually pretty good. You obviously are not playing this unless you have a surplus of artifacts. At minimum, CMC3. I would not play this in a deck that had only 2 drops. Anything 3 and above, I'm all about this card. This is obviously a little bit more for like EDH crowds. Maybe there's some kind of weird standard deck that wants to play this. As cool as this card is, though, it's going to look gorgeous in foil. This is the moment where Tezzeret sort of links himself with the planar bridge and just becomes, like, I can be everywhere at all times. I think that makes him Doctor Who at this point, so that's kind of neat to think about. When I grafted the planar bridge unto myself, I felt my Planeswalker spark flare beyond my body. The multiverse was my plaything. It felt incredible. And that is your flavor text theater for today. Yeah, this card's pretty sweet, but you gotta have to build around this one. This will table. This will not make my decks every time. I need a lot of support to make this good. This is just a really cool, flavorful card that Wizards is throwing at us for like EDH again, maybe standard, who knows, but cool card. Just, you gotta have the right stuff around this, and even then, it's gotta be good stuff too. Next up, we've got Patient Rebuilding. This is the first card we're going to see where Nicol Bolas is like doing his sort of, workout, I guess, to get kind of back into fighting shape after being, I guess, beaten on Amonkhet. I don't actually know. I don't know the story here. 3 blue enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent puts the top 3 cards of their library into the graveyard, and then you draw a card for each land put into the graveyard this way. Okay, so this and the next card, Psychic Corrosion, are like the crux of this weird mill deck that exists in Limited. In draft, I'm not super excited about this, except if I can like ramp this out onto like, if I can get this done on like turn 4, I think we're in business, because at that point your opponent's deck is going to become painfully thin, painfully quick, and more painfully for them than for you. And then the card draw aspect is nothing to sneeze at either. You know what? I might just take this first pick just to play with it and just, laugh at my opponent's, sadness as their deck just literally falls apart in front of them. But this one's more flavor points for me, and that's where I'm going to put this one for me. I'm going to hold on to the reservation for this one, too. Another TBD on this one. Same with our next card here, Psychic Corrosion. 2 and a blue at uncommon enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Combining these 2 together, that's a KO right there. That's literally the Hourglass is now their worst enemy. And I'm not sure that anybody's deck could kill you fast enough if you've survived that long to put this and Rebuilding into play. I don't think they're going to win that game, or they're just not long for that world at all. That's 5 cards a round right there. So Psychic Corrosion obviously needs some build around. I'm not going to put this in my draft decks unless I am playing. This might be my win condition, honestly, in my draft decks. and just find the ways to draw cards off Divination and the Mystic Archaeologist, cards like that. So this card is definitely powerful. It just needs to be built around. And I think once I have a good shell, I'll put it in. But if I don't have that, I am going to pretty much just ignore this one. Without the right support, this card probably is almost unplayable. But we'll see. I'll reserve judgment for this one too. Mill is always sort of like that, you know, that dream win condition for most Magic players. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, guys. Moving on, though, to a card I'm super excited about. Sai the Master Thopterist. 2 and a blue, legendary creature, human artificer, rare, 1/4. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 Thopter token. Fun! You may pay 1 and a blue and sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card. Even more fun. I will first pick this. I will go super hard and super deep into artifacts to make Sai Master Thopterist work. Is he good enough for other formats? I have no idea. Probably an EDH somewhere, you crazy kids out there. Maybe there's an artifact deck in Standard somewhere to be found. Who knows? You know, this is definitely not modern playable. Maybe? I'll try it. Tezzeret needs new buddies anyway. But yeah, this card is definitely first pickable. You know, if I'm not going to go out of my way to start drafting artifacts if I open this later in the draft. It's just not worth it to to veer that far off of your strategy already. So build around it for sure. First pick it in draft if you want to play the deck, and then your sealed pool will definitely have to support him as well. On his own, I would say you would need at least between 3 and 4 artifacts before he's actually, you know, playable at that point. So keep that in mind. There's some power here. You just got to have to work to unlock it. Next up, we have Salvager of Secrets, 3 blue, Merfolk Wizard. Still, no spirits. Common 2/2, as it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm not sure on this one. I need a deck that has a lot of instants and sorceries that I've already... Unfortunately, it's a 5-drop, so that means that I'm most likely going to have spells in my graveyard already that this can go and get, but I'm going to need a pretty significant surplus. Probably, you know, when we talk about, you know, 5 to 8 non-creature spells, or specifically instants and sorceries in my deck, I'm going to push that to maybe upwards of 10? And just use this to recur that kind of like a really bad Snapcaster Mage, and, you know, just use that to push the game even longer. The body's pretty underwhelming, but the regrowth effect on it is definitely worth it. So you're paying about 3 mana for that and 2 mana for the body, and there's a happy medium in there. And I think this card is right on the cusp of playable. I probably won't make my sealed decks here, but if I'm in a very, very hard controlling draft deck, I will most likely play Salvager of Secrets here, and, you know, it's chump bait at that, it's chump blocks at that point. But if it gets back a powerful removal spell, you know, or a counter spell, I can definitely see merit for this one. But it's gonna be, again, it takes some real building around it, and you need to have the cards already have been played, and so drawing at the wrong time can be kind of punishing. So powerful, just again, needs to be unlocked here. Next up, we have Scholar of the Stars, and if this isn't the most beautiful piece of artwork, it's just so simplistic. I love the negative and the positive space here. It's simple, but it's beautiful. Anyway, 3 blue, Human Artificer at common. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another artifact, or just control an artifact, why is it another? Draw a card. So again, you want to be in an artifact-based deck. We're about to get to a card that actually gives you artifacts, so that's good stuff there. This card's pretty powerful here. Obviously, I'd prefer to be a 3/3 and, you know, be a hill giant at that point, but 3/2 is nothing to scoff at, and if I'm in the deck, if I've got an artifact to go along with it, and if I'm in blue, the likelihood of having those artifacts goes up a considerable amount. I'm gonna be happy to play this, so I need to have the artifacts already in my deck before I draft this, and I'm gonna need to have the depth of a pool necessary to turn this on. Without the draw card, this card is pretty much garbage in my opinion. But once you've got it, you're gonna like having the ability to turn him on. Next up, we have Sift, and this is something that's being reprinted after seeing a appearance in Masters 25, I believe. 3 in a blue sorcery at uncommon, draws 3 cards, and then discards a card. This again kind of makes me think that with cards like this, that this is a slower format. And the more and more I think about it, that's probably pretty good for newer players coming into the game with a core set, which is what these things are designed for the most part, is to be, new player friendly. You don't want to be run over by, turn 1 step links, turn 2 plated Geopede, turn 3 teetering peaks, get you dead. Stuff like that's not fun. So having cards that make the games go longer and want you to, and that incentivize you to play a longer game, I quite like. And so Sift here is really powerful. Late game, you draw this. I got this dead land in my hand. I'll draw 3 cards and pitch a land. And this is really powerful stuff here. And if I can get it back with that Merfolk Wizard, now we got some gas going. So definitely slower controlling decks in blue. Not really a tempo card, but maybe a one of to refill my hand if I've kind of run out of gas, after my initial onslaught of my flyers, perhaps. So a very powerful card. Definitely makes me think that this is going to be a slow-ish format. Next up, we've got the Skilled Animator. Kind of looks like Idris Elba there. 2 in a blue, Human Artificer, uncommon, 1/3. As it enters the battlefield, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power toughness 5/5 for as long as the Skilled Animator remains on the battlefield. So +1/+1 counters will obviously make this thing bigger. The body is obviously not great. I mean, it's fantastic for its, I'm not kidding, this card's insane. If I have an artifact-based deck, which we've already talked about, blue wants to have artifacts, I will snap this up. I can't first pick it unless I'm going to go out of my way to find the artifacts. Using the, having that, the Tezzeret ability to make 5/5s out of nothing is pretty powerful here. So, I keep saying this with all the blue cards. If you've got the way to unlock its potential, which is kind of a very blue thing to do, very on theme for blue, this card will be very, very powerful as opposed to a deck that cannot get the extra value out of it. So again, can you turn the key to unlock the door to make the bookshelf become a monster? Sure, cool. Just pray that you don't disperse it and all of a sudden you have a problem. Anyway, moving on to Sleep. 2 blue sorcery at uncommon. Tap all creatures target player controls. Those creatures don't untap during the player's next untap step. Okay. This is a test because some people will look at this and go, this card is bad. And they're wrong because this card is actually very, very powerful. There are lots of tap effects. I can think of Gridlock being really powerful and Return to Ravnica block, which, instep, tap all your guys and get you. But when the board gets gummed up and you cast this, typically cards like this will not tap. They'll just say that, tap creature does, creatures your opponents control do not untap during their next untap step. The fact that this taps them and keeps them locked through a whole turn cycle is huge. So if you're in an aggressive blue, probably blue-white, blue, artifact, possibly maybe a blue-red, spell wizardy deck, this is the way to end the game. So you cast this, tap your team, swing in, they can't untap, you untap, swing again, and the game is most likely over. So Sleep is powerful stuff here, guys. So don't discount this card. Very much a tempo play. Obviously the control decks want this to be sort of like a one-sided pseudo wrath to buy them a couple turns. The tempo decks will want this to end the game. Lots of flexibility here. Don't sleep on Sleep. I'm sorry for that one. Moving right along, we've got the Snapping Drake. 4 mana, 3 in a blue, 3/2 common flyer. Bread and butter magic, everybody. There's nothing to say about this card except that you'll probably want it in any blue deck that you've got. It's just good, plain, simple magic. And moving on, Spirit count. Ding! Supreme Phantom. I got way too excited about that. I'm sorry. 1 in the blue, flying rare spirit. All other spirits you control get +1/+1, which at this point is only 2, so it's not that impressive and limited. Joking aside, though, a 130 Flyer's nothing to scoff at, and if you do have any number of other spirits, this is awesome. I've already seen a lot of people talking about this in Modern, in Bant, or Blue-White spirits. Lord effects are always good. There's only 2. There's only 2 in blue. I don't think this is, I don't know. Stats are fine. It's a good beater. Just, again, you need to build around this. And why are there only 2 spirits in blue? What the hell? Surge Mare is next. Blue Horsefish. The Simic must be crawling around here somewhere making all kinds of crazy combinations. Uncommon 0/5. Good lord. Can't be blocked by green creatures, and when it deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card, and if you do discard a card, you may pay 1 in a blue to give it +2, -2 until the end of turn. So this can get all the way up to a 4/1. That's insane. Yeah, for 2 blue mana, the mana cost is surprisingly restrictive on this one, but the power is definitely there. Just to make it a 2/3, later in the game when the board's kind of all, just gotten cleared out, and you start drawing cards off this bad boy. Wow, this card is actually deceptively powerful. And when your opponent starts turning it sideways and you're like, I'm not gonna block it, and they start pumping it, like this is, think back to Aetherling, when they start attacking you and they start pumping it, the game's going to end in fast order. And this is by no means an Aetherling, don't get me wrong. But this is still seriously powerful stuff here. And if your blue opponents, or if you can take advantage of it as a blue player yourself, this is going to be very impressive in a lot of blue decks. I would say almost any blue deck I build will have, if I have them and I can draft them, will have copies of Surge Mare. Really impressive card here, as is the whole horse cycle, to be honest. So we'll get to the rest of them later in the week, but cool stuff here. Next up, we've got Switcheroo. 4 and a blue for a uncommon sorcery that exchanges control of 2 target creatures. So let's say that you have a little Thopter and your opponent has a giant dragon. Well, now you have a dragon and your opponent has a Thopter. It's about as simple as I can make the comparison here. This card's pretty solid here, typically blue decks don't have, that big giant dragon finisher, unlike the Jin or the Sphinx, Horizon Sphinx. So cards like this let you sort of take the bombs from your opponent. They slam their big dragon and you're like, well, crap, all I have is this token. Problem solved. So being 5 mana is it's where it needs to be. It sucks that we don't get mind control anymore, but I think that card is almost too powerful for limited. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but Switcheroo is absolutely fine. I like it as a cool trick. So yeah, I'd play this in most blue decks, more control-y blue decks. Probably not my more tempo-based ones, but this card's very, very powerful. It's nice that this isn't an enchantment that steals a creature. This is a permanent steal, so your opponent can't, they'd have to bounce it to get it back in their hand to replay it. So it's a pretty cool effect here. Definitely powerful stuff here. Unlike our next card, which is just badass. God, Tezzeret keeps coming back. We've seen him. This is his 4th go around in the past 2 years, if you count the Planeswalker deck versions. And man, Artifice Master, and this art is just so badass. It's just like, I don't care where I am. I'm just the best because I'm just, oh man, where has he gone in this art? I don't know. I don't care. He's awesome. 3 blue, legendary Planeswalker, Tezzeret, mythic rare obviously, 5 starting loyalty, +1s to create a 1/1 colorless Thopter token. Pretty sweet. For 0, this is where this card gets busted powerful here. 0 draws you a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, you draw 2 instead. So obviously I'm first picking this and just going as hard as I can into artifacts. The -9, the ultimate it's good, but it's not what I would consider game-winning either. This is more just kind of like a win more. If your Tezzeret gets that much loyalty, the game is probably ended, very shortly. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is kind of him indicating that he is plugged into the planar gate and is literally pulling whatever the hell he wants out of your library and putting it into play. At this point in the game, I don't know how many things you have left that are worth getting. Maybe 1 or 2 more creatures, obviously lands, some enchantments. He's not here for the -9 people. That +1 and the 0 just combine so well. And as soon as you can get 3 in play of any artifacts, you're going to win the game in such short order because you're going to bury your opponent in card advantage. And going to 6 loyalty plus a blocker, that's good stuff right there. Tezzeret is super powerful here. It will make any blue deck I'm playing. Full stop. Unlike my next card here, Arisin Scholar. What's the point here? I get that we're putting a card from Dominaria into every set. I understand. Why is it this card? This card is so... Arisin Scholar is a common. Human Wizard, 2/3, 2 and a blue. And it's so underwhelming. That wall of text, that's flavor text. I don't care about this card. I get it. The professor of Tolarian Community College is all high on this card, but come on, this is embarrassing right here. I will not play this card. Unless I am scraping for playables, I will not play this card, period. Moving on to a card I will, though. Totally lost. Poor... Sure. It's not the Jeering Homunculus, which is one of Sean's favorite cards ever. Uncommon or common instant to put a target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. You want a time walk? How about a time ebb? I forget what the card here that does this. That's cheaper. That's more powerful, obviously. Yeah, this card's really powerful. There's nothing better than having your opponent attack with their giant guy, and you just go whoop. Top of your library, please, or their planeswalker, or their enchantment, or their artifact, or whatever the hell it is, as long as it's not a land, but it's on top of their library. So basically, not only time walking them, but effectively undoing their draw step because they're just going to draw it again. It's super powerful. Great tempo play. I'll play 1, maybe 2, depending on the speed of the format in my blue tempo-based decks, and probably about the same amount in my sealed decks as well. Maybe there's some kind of fun mill combo here where you put their best card on top of their library and then Psychic Corrosion it or something. I don't know. So this card's cool, though. I love the art, too. That guy's cute. Next up, we have Uncomfortable Chill. 2 and a blue, instant common. Creatures your opponent control get -2, -0 until the end of turn, and you draw a card. This is a pretty sick and very crafty combat trick for blue here to hit all creatures and cantrip. Awesome. So if your opponent's maybe gotten out to a pretty aggressive start, the board is favorable, but not too... This is a good way to just, basically pull the rug out from underneath them and just blank their combat step, maybe trade up, blank out an entire pump spell for their team. There's a lot of flexibility in this card, and that's what I like about it. And the cantrip is just, icing on the cake there. So maybe 1 in my draft decks, and, you don't play a bunch of this card, obviously. 1, 2 maybe, still very powerful, and the art here, I have no idea what's going on in this art. This is just weird, and it's a little nightmarish. So I'm going to move along to our last 2 blue cards. We've got Wall of Mist. It's a 1 and a blue wall defender, and I think that's a Stormcrow in there in the art. Just saying. There's another card in this set that makes this giant wall playable, but unless I'm in the dirtiest of control decks that's got all the Psychic Corrosions and all the Patient Rebuildings, I'm probably going to leave this one at home. Enough said. Now this other card, the Wind Reader Sphinx. What is with 3/7s in this set? That's the second 3/7 in this set next to the Elephant Knight. Maybe there are more. We'll start a count. No, I'm kidding. No counts. 5 blue Sphinx. At rare, 3/7, flying. Whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card. So this is obviously the payoff for your blue-white flyer deck or your blue-black flyer deck or however many flyers you have. This card's absolutely berserk. The fact that you're not having to deal damage, but just attacking draws you the card, and maybe that draws you the counter spell to, you know, stop their removal spell, or the pump spell to get your team through, or the bounce spell to stop their blocker. This card's really scary. 7 mana is a steep cost for it, and you're probably better off. It might be better in like a blue-green ramp deck. We do have some good ramp spells in this set, but mostly any blue deck, aside from like the most aggressive blue-white flyer and tempo decks, will definitely want Wind Reader Sphinx here. Again, this is more just, you know, good solid rares. You know, they're not going to make it into standard or modern or beyond. You know, Commander's its own thing, obviously. But again, these are really exciting cards for new players to open and go, wow, I do what when I attack with flyers? Sweet! So cards like this are exciting, you know, in the right way, and I think that's really, really cool. Wizards has again gone back to making core sets where not everything has to be this super thematic on flavor rare. Just give me a big dumb Sphinx and I'm happy. I'm simple like that. And that wraps up our blue limited set review. We are right at an hour. Thanks for sticking it out with me, guys. Get ready to take down the pre-release coming up in just over a week. It's next weekend, not this weekend. Be on the lookout for the rest of the set review. We've got the black, the red, the green, the gold, and the artifact cards to go. Definitely let me know in the comments, what is your favorite blue card? What are you excited to open? What kind of combos do you see? What are you going to put in your standard decks and your modern decks? Sound off in the comments. Don't forget to share, and subscribe the videos. Hit the little bell thing that we have to say now. I hate promoting this kind of nonsense here. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with more of our Core Set 2019 limited set review. Until then, there's black cards. Spoilers.